ahead and get started. I call to order the work session of the Hillsboro School District Board of Directors at 5:44. First item of business is to discuss budget committee applications and discussions with.
Good evening, everyone. We've had 4 vacancies, and I'm really excited to say we've got 4, applicants for the board's review this evening, which would be, assuming your approval, the first time we've been able to close all our vacancies in, I think, quite a long time. So I'm excited about that. 3 of those folks are here, and I think I can see Paul online. So we thought we'd begin by just having them briefly introduce, maybe for a minute or 2, themselves to the board and why they're interested. 30 seconds. Sorry, I was corrected. 30 seconds on a quick introduction of each of you and your interest in joining the budget committee. And maybe we could start online with Paul Sander. As soon as we get, would I start with someone here?
My name's Paul Sander. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now, Paul. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll just introduce myself and say that in addition to the information that I provided in my application, I'm just always interested in learning how organizations tick. And it occurred to me, since my daughter is a teacher in the Hillsboro School District and I have 2 grandchildren in the district, that if I were to join the budget committee, that would make us a multi-generational trifecta with our support and participation with the district. And so I would look forward to that. And that, coupled with my accounting and finance background, I thought I might be a good fit, and I appreciate the board's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Next up, Dr. Karuna. How'd I do with that? Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Karuna, and I'm an engineer with myself. I don't have kids myself, but a lot of my friends who live in Hillsboro think that I applied for this budget committee. I first part of a lot of finance projects as an engineer myself, so I want to really focus on that. So looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. Okay. And then next up is, Robert. Robert.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Knoke. Actually, I see a lot of familiar faces here tonight, so that's wonderful. I've lived in Hillsboro for years. I've got a pair of kids, twins, in the Hillsboro District School, so I'm very invested in the long-term prosperity of the Hillsboro School District. Professionally, I serve as the Director of Operations for Concord Credits, for a finance company. There, I'm responsible for multi-million-dollar budgets, for the strategic planning of very large-scale projects. We have 1,000 or so team members that are under my umbrella. I get to work on a regular basis. So, very familiar with budget planning. When I'm not hanging out with my kids and my wife and not working, I like to volunteer. I recognize a lot of things within here from volunteering on different committees, whether it be the Diversity and Equity Committee or Bond Development Committee. I really think it's a great opportunity for people to take professional experience and be able to apply that to making sure that we can make good financial decisions for all of our kids moving forward. So thanks for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Robert. And last but certainly not least, we have Maria Mondragon-Almy.
I'm going to submit. Good evening, and thank you for this invite. My name is Maria Mondragon-Almy, and I'm very excited to be here tonight. I've been a Hillsboro resident for 15 years. This is my first year as a parent having a student in the Hillsboro School District as a kindergartner. So I'm very interested in learning and finding out how our funds are spread across the board, not only to support our classrooms, but also the teachers. Also, being a woman of color and having a kid of color, I'm very interested in how those funds are spread equitably across the system to make sure that all kids' voices are heard. And that's why I'm here. So I hope that you take my application into consideration, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Maria. Those are our 4 candidates.
So I'll ask you to fill these applications out now. Make sure you put your name on the top, and then we will have you read your applications after we're done. We need to be transparent with this, so we'll have you read out your applications when we're finished.
Just because one of the terms is shorter. Okay.
Top and the bottom?
Right.
Top and the bottom?
Yeah, on the bottom, you'll just write who gets the 1-year term, and then you'll, you can, so in the top box, you'll write, for example, you can say, Paul gets the 1-year term, and then Robert, Maria, and Danuka gets a 3-year term. And that's what you would say to me out loud right after that, as soon as you're ready. Because we need this to be a local process.
Thank you to everyone for being willing to do this. We appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
I think it's nice that Oregon's local budget law gives us the opportunity to have a few extra eyes on the budget every year.
Yeah.
Yes. Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to start with Patrick.
All right. I have Paul for position 2, Robert for position 5, Maria for position 6, and Danuka for position 7.
Danuka for position 2, Robert for position 5, Maria for position 6, Paul for position 7.
I had Maria for position 1, Robert for position, start again. Maria for position 2, position 5, Robert Knoke, and for position 6, Dr. Danuka, and then position 7, Paul. That's it.
Paul position 2, Maria position 5, Robert position 6, and position 7.
Position 2, Maria. Position 5, Danuka. Position 6, Robert. Position 7, Paul.
Thank you, Chair.
Position 2, Paul. Position 5, Lisa. Position 6, Robert. Position 7, Maria.
Thank you. And I had position 2, Paul, position 5, Maria, position 6, Danuka, and position 7.
Thank you very much. I will compile these and we will do the vote downstairs tonight.
Thank you. And then, okay, so moving on, next item is the general obligation bond issue and operation levy with Scott.
Yeah, so very pleased to introduce Lauren McMillan, who's not probably an unfamiliar face to many of you. She's been a friend of the district, worked on our prior bond. She's managing director at Piper Sandler and well known to many of us here in the cabinet in the district. And so we asked her to come in and first just brief all of you a bit on the upcoming plans around the bond from a finance angle. And also, I know there was some interest in local options, so I've asked her to also speak a little bit to that. Lauren, if you want to drive. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here. So I work with Piper Sandler. So we serve as the school district's underwriter. Whenever you do general obligation bonds or if you do a full faith credit borrowing, PERS borrowing, that's us. I've worked with the district for a number of years. I've been in Oregon public finance for 15 years and in public finance in general for over 19. I literally can't believe it's going to be 20 years next year. But I'm happy to be here to kind of give you some background information as you're starting to talk about another potential general obligation bond authorization. And then also I hear there's some interest in local options, so I get to cover all the really fun topics. So I've got some background information, and then we'll look at some examples for analysis, and then some comparable levy rate data, and then some information about the state Awesome Grant program, and then we'll end with local option. But please jump in if you have questions as I'm going, I'm happy to answer them. Okay, oh, there we go. You're getting the right spot.
You got a manual button. Yeah.
You know what? That's a great trick.
Make sure the power's on. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. So first off, what is a general obligation bond? You may not know if you haven't spent your life in public finance, but basically it's a specific type of loan that the school district can take out. Bonds are traditionally broken up into multiple pieces and sold to different investors. General obligation bonds refers to the security, basically what revenue source is pledged to repay that debt. And in this case, it's a property tax levy on all property within the district's boundary. There's also what's known as a full faith and credit pledge that is also attached, and that just means in addition, there's a pledge of all legally available funds. So that means if something were to go wrong with the property tax levy, if it was insufficient in a year, then the district would use any other legally available funds to make up the shortfall. It just adds additional security and makes this a very high quality credit that investors want. The debt service, that's a term for the principal, so the amount that you borrow and the interest that you pay on it. That debt service is repaid by an unlimited property tax levy that is dedicated to repayment of the bond. So it's dedicated, meaning you can only use those collections to pay the debt service. And it's unlimited in the sense that the levy rate that is set each year by the county assessor is unlimited. It could be set as high as is necessary to generate the amount needed to pay your debt service. So your assessed value changes each year, which we will see in a couple of slides, and that levy rate also changes. So it's not unlimited in the sense that you can just levy whatever you want and use the extra collections to do something else. So but you may hear that term thrown around with general obligation bonds, and that's what it's referring to. So again, all of this comes together to create this really high quality credit that the district can offer to investors. So even though the market, it's been a little off in the last year, maybe more than that, but there is still a lot of demand for school district general obligation bonds. So all of this is good, right? And let's just go get a general obligation bond, but you do have to get voter approval. So since GO bonds are repaid with property taxes, there are some really key concepts that we want to understand from the beginning. So real market value, or RMV, is the amount that a property could be reasonably be expected to sell for. It's measured every year by the county assessor. When you and maybe other constituents think of your property value, you're likely thinking of the real market value, right? What could you sell it for? And there's another arguably more important value when we're talking about levy rates, and that is assessed value, or AV, and that's the actual value that is used to calculate your tax burden, right? How many folks have looked at their property tax statement?
Yes.
Yes, I like it. And so you may have noticed it's on there, right? The difference between your real market value and your assessed value. And oftentimes your assessed value is much lower than the real market value. And that's definitely a story that comes up a lot when you're trying to talk folks into, voting for a general obligation bond. Your assessed value is lower, the cost to you may be lower than you initially think. The other thing to note is that the assessed value cannot exceed the real market value. So folks are not winding up in a situation where they're paying taxes on a higher value than their property is actually worth. Certain properties like industrial, utility property have a real market value and assessed value that's much more even. And so if those properties, if the real market value declines, the assessed value declines as well. But for residential property, the real market value is often much higher than the assessed value. So the bond levy rate is the tax rate that basically the district charges to pay the debt service. And it's expressed in a rate in dollars per thousand of assessed value. The levy rate is calculated annually by the assessor, and it is set by the assessor. And the district cannot predict what that levy rate will be each year, and that we're not actually setting the rate. What the district does is it submits a form to the county assessor each year saying how much money you need to levy, the amount. You actually submit a dollar amount to the county assessor to say, this is what I need to pay my debt service every year. And then once the assessor has calculated the new assessed value for the district, they spit out the resulting levy rate on like the Form 4A, if you've ever seen it. So the district can estimate what that levy rate will be based on different property value growth assumptions, but you actually cannot set the levy rate or guarantee it. 6 o'clock. Sorry, my alarm is going off to feed my sourdough. Okay. So
officially makes you human.
Thank you. So in Oregon, the geo tax levy is not limited by Measure 5 or Measure 50. That means the geo tax levy is not subject to compression. So if that doesn't mean a whole lot to you, that's okay. Like, just all you need to know is that the geo levy is not subject to compression, and that's a good thing. Compression is that real fun aspect of Oregon's property tax system that lowers your permanent rate collections, but it does not apply on geo bonds. Technically, there are 4 election dates each year, but really the only ones that matter are May and November because they're not subject to double majority, and they're the only elections that are tied to the Awesome Grant. State law does limit how much issuers can borrow for general obligation bonds, but it's very, very generous. So for school districts, it's 7.95% of the district's total real market value. So for your district, that's about $3 billion. Most districts do not get anywhere close to their legal debt capacity because the resulting levy rate would just be too high. So the ballot title that gets put together, which is what folks vote on, it's basically your contract with the voters. It has to include a not to exceed amount that you want to borrow, permitted use of proceeds, and the maximum years to maturity, so the term over which you would like to borrow the funds. Now, what you may notice is not included there is the levy rate, is the estimate of the levy rate. That is not actually required to be included, but it is very common for it to be included, and folks traditionally expect it. So it is often included in the ballot title as well, but it is not a requirement. This is a sample ballot title from another district. The form is standard, restricted. So everyone gets a caption with 10 words, a question with 20 words, and then a summary with 175 words. You can see the key items highlighted. Under the question, we have the amount they were asking for. Under the summary, in those bullet points, is the list of projects that they want to use the funds on. Now, this is definitely an art when we're crafting this, and you'll work with we're generally involved in reviewing it, and also a bond counsel, which is the attorney that helps you navigate this whole process. And really, you want to give voters an idea of what you're going to use the funds on, but not be too specific. You do want to maintain some flexibility if things change. If you say you're going to build 3 classrooms, then you are limited to 3 classrooms. So it's definitely a whole process, refining that list. And also, that list must include anything you want to use the Awesome Grant funds on as well. And then in the bottom, you can see the 20 years was the term that they went out with. And then highlighted also is the estimate of the levy rate. And what's not highlighted is the introduction, which does say it is an estimated rate. Okay, so what can you use the money on? Well, it's actually pretty flexible at this point. It has changed over the years. But now you can use GO bond proceeds on capital costs with a useful life of 1 year or more. So that covers a lot of things. That covers your traditional construction, but it also covers purchasing land, other assets, also furnishing and equipping buildings. And so that can include technology, that can include buses. There's a lot that can be included here. There are certain limits where the weighted average life of the borrowing may not exceed the weighted average life of what you're financing. That just means you can't borrow over 30 years and, let's say, only finance computers that have a much shorter useful life. But generally, folks are going for a basket of different projects. Often, the larger ticket items are going to have those longer useful lives, and those balance out the shorter ones. So most school districts borrow between a 20 to 30-year period. Certain things like routine maintenance and supplies are not eligible, but also interest earnings on the proceeds must be used in accordance with the ballot title. So that gets back to the flexibility. If you end up earning substantial amount on the proceeds before you spend it, those earnings also have to be used on that list. So it's important to have, you may end up with a little bit extra, which would be nice, right? So we definitely work with folks to keep that a little open-ended, and that's why. Okay, you guys ready to dive into some numbers? Graphs. Okay. So one big component of our analysis is interest rates. Believe it or not, I don't know what interest rates are going to be in 2027 when you borrow money. So we have to look at where interest rates are now, and then we add a cushion over that to account for any volatility, because interest rates are constantly changing. This graph shows you kind of two key benchmarks for municipal bonds. One is the gray one is the U.S. federal government, their treasury bond for a 20-year issue, and then a 20-year AAA MMD index, which is just a benchmark for tax-exempt debt. So the districts will get to issue in the tax-exempt market. That's a benefit to you. It means that investors don't have to pay taxes on the interest income they receive. Therefore, they're willing to accept a lower interest rate than taxable bonds. The federal government actually borrows on a taxable basis. But what happens with the federal government tends to influence other markets, and so that's why you can see these often move kind of in the same direction, except when there's, big key events like back in 2008 when stuff kind of went awry, and then 2020, COVID, all of that stuff impacts the financial markets. Things that you would think don't have any impact, they have nothing to do with finance, they will have an impact on how investors are, utilizing their money. And so we see a lot of headline risk recently with what's going on with the federal government and all of that plays out in the market. So rates are up from their historic lows. I mean, they were very, very low, like back when the district borrowed in 2020, amazing. So you can see kind of the 20-year MMD is just up around the 4%, just under 4% right now. So the district will borrow kind of a spread over that. And again, you're borrowing, you have amount paying back from 1 to 20 years. So your total borrowing cost currently is probably like in the 4 to 5% range for a 20-year issue. But again, this does change. We could have really good timing in early 2027. If you've been following what's been going on, the Fed has been starting to reduce interest rates, which everyone says, okay, great, that's going to reduce everyone else's interest rates. But it's been kind of lagging, And so it's possible that we will actually hit some lower rates within the next year or so. Another really key component for our analysis is your property values. Since we're levying a tax on your property value base, if it changes substantially like it did this year, that has an impact on the analysis. And so you can see in this chart, we've got the real market value, and then the real market value growth, and then moving from left to right, then we've got your total assessed value. We've also got urban renewal, which has an impact on our analysis that we just factor in, and then your net assessed value. And on the far right column, your assessed value growth. The district had almost 30% growth in its assessed value base this fiscal year, and that is attributable to some tax exemptions expiring for Intel, right? So that's not natural. It's kind of artificial growth. And it's great, right? We'll see what that did to the levy rate, though. But you can see how that assessed value grows every single year. And in most cases, you know, the last 5 years, it's been very strong, upwards of 7%. There are some limits on the assessed value. So existing properties are limited to 3% growth each year. But this is on a property-by-property basis. So that's mostly like your residential properties. All of those are limited to 3% growth. The district as a whole can grow more than that because of new construction. So that's why you see the district having more than 3% growth each year. It's also not a given that your value will grow 3% per year. You can see in the far right column, there were some years back in, what is that, the early
2020?
Yeah, 2013, we had a 0.75% growth. And then 2019, we were under 3%. So again, that can happen when certain properties that have a real market value closer to their assessed value, if that real market value declines, the assessed value can decline too. So that could be, let's say, a large utility property or a large industrial property, which you have an abundance of, that could have impacted the district's overall assessed value growth.
Is there a possibility, given that Intel was the driving kind of force at the time that changed, they depreciate on a pretty rapid schedule, I think 5 or 7 years. So I assume then that could have a suppressive effect on the growth number in subsequent years after this. Is that a fair assumption for us to potentially make?
Yeah, I definitely think there could be an impact. I would be interested in having a conversation, if we can, with the county assessor, because that's not something we have a way of predicting, right. But we have seen in other areas when this property comes on the rolls and then they're depreciating it very quickly. You know, you had this big growth this year, they could have some significant depreciation next year, which could potentially suppress that overall growth. So I wish I could tell you what what the growth will be in the future, but I probably would be doing something else if I could do it. Other things, I think it's interesting to look at the overall gap between the real market value and the assessed value. So we didn't have real market value yet for this year when we put this together, but in 2025, the district's real market value as a whole was over $38.6 billion, and the assessed value was only $22.8 billion. So that's a huge gap. And that just illustrates that concept I was talking about, that most properties are going to have a really much significantly lower AV than their real market value. Okay. Other things we look at, your existing bonds. So right now the district has just 2 series outstanding. That was from the 2017 authorization. And you can see in the graph below, we're projected to have a drop in the debt service after this next fiscal year, so after fiscal 27. And that presents an opportunity for a new authorization without potentially increasing that levy rate. What we can also see here, the gray bars are where the the levy rate was actually set over the last few years, and you can see that it kind of moves around a little. And that's because, again, we don't know what that assessment is. So when it differs from what was modeled when the bonds were originally sold, it can, it makes the levy rate end up not being flat as it is projected to be, right? But what has happened is your actual growth has come in higher than what we had modeled, so that levy rate has come down significantly. I think you remember what it was in the ballot title? She's got it. So when the ballot title that was put together for the 2017 authorization estimated a $2.24 levy rate, and it is down. It was in the 190s the last few years, but that significant AV growth this year brought it down to like 150. So that's good, right? That's a great spot to be in. But it does present sort of an opportunity here when we're going out for the new issue as to kind of what benchmark do we use when we're talking about the levy rate going forward. Because that is a really big change. Most folks don't see that big of a change in the levy rate from one year to the next.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Can you go back to that slide?
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question there too.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding what the Series 2012 refund rate was, because, and what I'm thinking is in the back of my head, someone correct me, it was either last year or the year before, our financial rating, and I'm wondering, how that ties into the fact that we've done very well with these bonds. They've come in strong. We've accounted for every dime dollar at every point. But yet I'm worried that there's something there's a shoe that's going to drop someplace, and I'm not sure where it's coming from. But that doesn't make me feel good, and I just want to make sure about. I am crazy, sufficiently so. But if you think otherwise, please tell me.
You are not crazy. I think it's a great question. So the rating, that is kind of, we get a credit rating every time you sell bonds, right? And that does impact the interest rates that you get at the time of sale. And then those are locked at the time of sale. So we will get a new rating when we do this new issue, and that will sort of feed into the interest rates for the new authorization. But the debt service is locked in for your existing bond. Does that make sense? Okay, great.
So we're talking about this opportunity in November 2026 or May 2027, like something's coming off. But the table above, nothing from 2017 is coming off. All the others have already come off. What's coming off?
That was just how the initial, the debt service was structured when that issue was sold. It was structured to have a drop in that year to create an opportunity for an additional authorization. So you can see in the bars, the yellow bar dropped significantly. So the amount of debt service that you're paying on your existing bonds decreases, although there is no bond issue that is completely going away in that year.
That's confusing, right? Because when in 17 we were actually saying it was coming off, and the second one down there came off in 2017, right? So this time it's not doing that.
So when we did the 2017 issue, so what we could have done was keep the levy rate level for 20 years, right? What we did was we backed off and created this step 10 years down the road, right? From 2017 to 2027.
So
this was by design. Yes, this was by design to have another opportunity to go back to the voters in 10 years as opposed to 20. So it's actually a really good strategy, even though it's a little confusing.
Well, I think part of what he's saying is, I too, when I first came on, we talked about that multiple times, that the anticipation that bond would fall off. That we just had the report, I guess it was last year or the year before, that said, hey, we did it, all dollars accounted for, we're good. And I think based on that, we were expecting something to fall off. It actually isn't. So
yes, we can't say that as we're discussing this with members of our community. We can't say that a bond's coming off because it's not.
Yeah, well, the other thing I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like technically this would have been the payoff of the 2006 bonds because that would have been sold likely on a 20-year repayment schedule. However, we took advantage of some great rates in ensuing years to refund outstanding debt. So it kind of allowed us to restructure. So I think it's a little bit of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I mean, the amount we've repaid is allowing the drop to happen and lower the rate if we were to do nothing. We're just filling it back in. So.
Yeah, I think it's just adjusting kind of the picture and the narrative a little, right? To say, because you don't have to have a bond falling off. It's just that there's a decrease in the debt service, whether that's from a bond going away or the amount that you're paying is just declining by design. And I don't know that you have to get into it too detailed with folks, but right. And so it made sense in that case.
It's the repayment of bond debt because it would otherwise go down because we don't need as much money to repay our existing debt. So therefore we have the opportunity to fill in our current rate and maintain the current debt repayment structure.
That's catchy.
It is catchy. It rolls right. It does. I'm going to make a T-shirt.
And what I was thinking was, that sounds really good. And is that going to come across on a piece of paper when we're splashing across our lawn thinking, we need more money?
I think you leave the messaging to me and Jeremy, and then we'll float it by you. And if it flies, great. And if it doesn't, we'll go back to the drawing board. How about that?
But we do have a lot of districts that are trying to employ this strategy with building these steps in, and they're having a lot of success getting those new authorizations with this kind of messaging that, you know, the levy rate is not projected to increase over historical levels, basically. And the other thing on this chart is you can see, and this will come in for the next couple of slides, is the average of your last 3 years. The levy rate's been about $1.81. And so that's kind of a benchmark that we're looking at in the next scenario.
So should the voters choose to pass this, are we structuring it so the next opportunity is in 2036 or in 2038 when the 17 bond, first tranche, the 17 bond is paid off?
Great question. Let's look. That will be answered. So we put together just a couple of scenarios as a starting point. There are so many different options that we could look at, but just to give you kind of a range to start of what could we theoretically borrow for at kind of these existing rates. The first option was, well, what if we benchmark to this year's rate, which is much lower, $1.58? How much can you raise there? What if we benchmark to that 3-year average of basically $1.81? How much can you get in that range? While also building in a step for additional borrowing in about 10 years. So a full 20-year term, but with a step built in again. So I know lots of numbers on this page, but basically these are our two options. The first one at the lower levy rate generates about $312 million, just shy of that. And then the higher rate generates just about $380 million. Both of these assume, you know, with a November 2026 election, that the debt is issued in early part of 2027. Unfortunately, we can't get you money the next day after the election. There's a whole process we have to go through. And then you can...
What's the potential step? You seem to...
You'll see it in the slide.
Sorry, this is just all the numbers. I can skim over this. The graph's where it's at, right? That's on the next slide. But this gives you all the data that's sort of feeding in here. At the bottom, you can see our interest rate assumptions, again, we're using a sizable cushion over current interest rates of 1.5%, and that accounts for volatility in those rates between now and then when the debt is sold in 27. The total borrowing cost with that with that 150 included is just about 5.5% or 5.4%, and that includes the cushion. So you could, today's rates, borrow substantially lower than that. Again, people kind of, I think their eyeballs bug out at like the total interest cost, and the interest cost is a percent of par. Again, this is including a lot of cushion, and our hope is that it ultimately comes in lower than this. Structuring assumptions, we're using very conservative, I think, assessed value growth given where you've been. We can definitely refine these assumptions, but just using a 3.5% growth, if you think back to that chart a couple of slides before, it's much lower than where you'd been even outside of this year's anomaly.
Curious if there's any correlation between a declining enrollment and higher property costs. I just think it's interesting. Yes, the property costs are going up.
Is that yeah, but our families are pushed out? Okay.
Or not.
Declining enrollment across.
Yeah.
A declining enrollment, yes. Declining enrollment is everywhere, but I guess
it's not something I know about. Like, it's not something that we've studied or anything, but
it's there. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't, it just feels weird for us to keep talking about growth and we know we're actually declining.
Yeah, it is definitely, I work with districts across the state, and that is something that comes up, when they're, especially Ben Lapine School District, it's a big issue. And so it comes up in our discussions with the rating agency, especially kind of saying, well, how are you, dealing with this? And Ben is actually looking at doing a program for like workforce housing and stuff. So it does come up. But it's hard. Yeah, it's like, yay, growth is a good thing on one hand, and then it's not on the other. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. Okay, here's our graph. Yay, this is what we want to see. So we do have that step built in. 10 years, again, is where it's sort of falling just naturally with like your outstanding bonds and how those decline.
Yeah, that chart shows the big one from 17 coming off in 38 or whatever.
Yes, I can't read that one. You have that here in front of me.
The last bar, the last big one.
Yeah, this one.
And so you're saying that 2017 bond,
2038.
Yeah, and the reason we have that little we have a decline in 38 and then we have another decline 2 years is because your 2017 authorization was sold in 2 series. So each series had a 20-year term. And so that's why the second one was 2 years longer. So, we've had discussions of where we can adjust that step, but this was kind of the initial take of let's keep it in 10 years because, needs change. It's kind of a good cadence, I think, to go back before the voters every 10 years or so. And you'll likely have needs.
And probably a different board.
So we can see just how the first one, that levy rate is projected to be level for, actually the $1.58 is the projected rate for 27. So it was set even slightly lower this year. But so we can adjust that. The rate for next year will come out right before the election. So we won't know it when we're finalizing the ballot title in August, but we will know it prior to selling the bonds and can make adjustments. And then you can see just a slight bump on the second scenario, taking it to that average of about $1.81. Again, both have the same sort of tail and step built in the outer years. The real difference is just in those first 10 years.
And you said we're restricted to
7.95% of your total real market value. Okay, so that's kind of the scenarios. Any questions before we move ahead? Okay. So I think what's often helpful is how do you guys compare to other districts? And there's a couple different ways that we can look at it. This table gives you lots of data. So it's sorted based on the total district tax rate burden. So that includes the permanent rate, which you can see everybody has a different permanent rate, and then whether they have a local option or not, and then the bond rate. And when we're looking at the total district rate for this grouping of folks, you guys are, towards the bottom middle. So not on the outlying top, which is, I think, a good place to be. Other thing that I like to focus on, we include the assessed value here, because when you're comparing to other districts, if you're comparing to, let's say, Beaverton, on just the levy rate, they have a higher levy rate, but they also have a much higher assessed value base. So $1 on their tax rate generates substantially more than $1 does on your tax base. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
The only thing I'll just add to that, it's been pointed out by others, while we're kind of in that bottom third. You look at the greater Portland metro districts, though, we're definitely trailing, familiar names above us, right?
So this is like the top 20 in the state, or what do you have here?
This is I want to say this is Multnomah, Washington, Clackamas counties to start.
Oh, okay.
It's not 197.
Exactly, no.
No. But we have that. If you want to see it. And then this is just the same table information in graph form. So you can see the gray is the permanent rate, yellow is local option, blue is bond. So we've got you highlighted here. And then we also sometimes will look at just the bond rate and how does that compare to other districts. And so if we take everything out, you guys are even lower within this grouping at around $1.50-ish this year. And then even up at the $1.81 level, you'd only leapfrog maybe 3 districts on this chart. So still well within kind of that bottom third. Okay. Moving on to some information just about what are your chances. So overall, school district bond issues going back to May of 2010, about 60% have been approved. The data looks slightly better for May versus November. Now, I am not a campaign person. I'm not a political person. They will slice and dice all of this, and obviously every jurisdiction is different. This is just on the very surface of the numbers. Some districts have fared better in May than November. Property tax statements come out in November right before the ballot goes out. Maybe there's a correlation there. I don't know. But it doesn't mean that we can't go in November, that it's not a good time to go. Districts have definitely had success there as well. And you're working with Jeremy Wright, who's going to go through all of this, and will probably suggest that November 26th is a great time to go. So there is a new program. They refer to it as the Awesome program. They're very clever at the state. They think they love this. But this is the state matching funds for school district GO bonds. It is authorized by the legislature each biennium. The amount can change. This biennium, it was just under $127 million. That is technically split evenly between the 4 elections in there, but we've seen a lot of funds move forward. It hasn't been eaten up each election cycle. So sometimes we'll see 70 or 80 million available for a given election. Technically, there should be about 32 million available, but that amount can change. So they just redid the funding formula and the ranking process, but basically they look at each district, they take data of their assessed value per ADMW, there's some adjustment for poverty on part of it, but not the other part, and then they get everybody into 4 tiers and decide what you're eligible for. And basically, your district is eligible for just over $6 million. And then there's a process if you're, at the top of this ranking chart, you may qualify for one pot of money versus the other pot of money, which is first in time. You guys are ranked 166 out of 197 districts. So it's unlikely that you'll get the grant funding in the priority bucket. You'll be more in the first in time bucket. But again, we've seen it depends on who else is applying in the same election, because sometimes we'll see everybody get a grant ahead of the election.
Well, given the current budget crisis in the state, and do you have faith in that's going to be there?
It's state law.
But so is everything else.
I mean,
that tongue in cheek.
It's a good question, but so this has already been budgeted for the 25-27 biennium, and they do borrow money to fund this program. So we haven't heard anything to say that they would be reducing this program.
We only qualify for $6 million because by what metric are we 166?
So basically it's saying that compared to the other 197 school districts, you have a very strong assessed value per kid, per ADMW. Like your assessed value per kid is very high compared to those other districts.
So you get 161 out of 600.
Yeah.
So where is it?
Yeah, so you're towards the lower, so it's a range of what's available. $6 million is the lower amount. Some districts are eligible for over $12 million.
Because they're lower.
Right. Basically, it's harder for them to raise funds. They kind of adjusted the formula because there were a number of districts who, that goes a long way when they're going to get a 50% match. Like they may only get a $20 million project, but they can get half of it funded by the state and half by the bond.
Riverdale or Lake Oswego is 197 or...
I hope so. I think they're down there with you, yeah.
I got that part. When do we know that they're going to fund that? Or they're going to borrow to fund it?
The 25, 27. If we go in 26, it's in this biennium.
Yeah, so it's already been appropriated. They do the actual bond issues at various times. It may be closer to the end of the biennium when they know exactly. They do borrowings for all of their different programs. They tend to borrow at the same time. It's been appropriated, yes. So they would have to go in and lower it. But it's not something that we've heard about yet.
I don't know.
Okay.
But like last time we were able to say we had matching grants from the state. So if we passed our bond, I think it was $4 million or something in seismic.
We got 8 last time around.
Okay. So this time if we pass this, the state's giving us something to say.
Yep. Yeah. You can still say it, right? And it probably helps. But yeah, when you're talking about 380 million and you're only getting 6, it's...
How about only? I never think of $6 million as only. So.
Well, good. Then it's still there. You'll definitely still want to brag about it.
I am going to apologize, but I do want to know, were we on a time frame?
Yes, Beth just said we're close. I'm almost to the local option stuff. So this chart is just to say that it's not a slam dunk. So when this program first rolled out, some folks would just be like, oh, look, I'm getting money from the state. Like, they're automatically going to pass my bond issue. And that's not what's happened. You still have to put in the legwork. Folks are not just approving this just for the state money. And then these are the timelines. It's just something that we'll work with the district on. Basically, for the November 26th election, you have to apply for the Awesome Grant in July. Okay, local options. So, I feel like we need a little bit of a break in between. We don't have time for it, but it is a bit of a switch in your brain. Local option is basically one of your only tools to raise additional operating dollars, right? And it is outside of the state school fund formula. So I think what is probably tricky when we go from talking about bonds to a local option levy is I was really hammering on this. It's an estimated levy rate on the bonds. And then when you switch to local option, you are likely going to ask for an actual levy rate. So it is completely different in that way. So you do have an option to ask either for a fixed dollar amount to levy or a levy rate, but there's much more upside if you do a levy rate. Because local option collections are subject to compression. So unlike the GO bonds, local option is subject to compression just like your permanent rate. So if you've looked at how much the district has lost on their permanent rate to compression, you may understand how this can impact your collections from year to year. And the other fun part is that when there is compression, local option compresses to zero before the permanent rate is hit. So local option gets more compressed than your permanent rate. So it's pretty difficult to sort of project what you may get without doing a very detailed property by property level analysis. The local option is approved for 5 years. So you do have to go back out to voters every 5 years to get it approved to keep the funds coming. And again, yes, voter approval is required. So there's a lot going on this chart. I won't pretend to be able to read it, but basically what it's getting down to is there are some limits. So the local option collections are outside of the state school fund formula up to a prescribed limit. So that is something that we have to factor in, and it's a three-pronged test. So it's the lesser of how much you can collect in full with your local option, or a per student limit, the amount per student changes each year, or 25% of your state school fund amount. And so the lesser of those three items. And it has changed for the district. A few years ago, it was the full amount that you could collect between the gap between the assessed value and the real market value. It is now the per student limit and has been for the last 3 years. So the total limit is just over 54 million this year. But you can see how that, if you go back in time, especially when you were limited by the Measure 5 gap capacity, how that could change from year to year. It went from 37 million in 2020 up to 46 million in 2022. So these collections can be very volatile depending on what's going on with your real market value. So who has local options in the state? This is it. Of 197 districts, we've got, I forgot to count them. I want to say it's around 17 though. So closer to 20. So we've got 20 districts out of 197. So it is tough to get a local option in place. We have seen once districts overcome that first hurdle that renewals are much easier, but getting a local option approved the first time can take a few tries. There's been a number of districts who have had to go on the ballot more than once before they were able to actually get it approved. The range is about 30 cents up to $1.99. So there's a number of districts kind of in the 150 range, but that gives you an idea of what folks have been able to approve. So how much can you raise with a local option? Well, as I alluded to before, it's pretty complicated. We can run an analysis where we get the actual property level data from the county assessor. I can't remember for you guys. It's like hundreds of thousands of levels of property. Kind of fun in a really nerdy way to put it together, though. But we can run a range of, what happens with different growth rates. What does that do to your collections? What we can see when we put this together is how, at lower levels, they may be less impacted by compression. It depends on the mix of the properties. This chart looks different for every single district that I've put it together for, because every single district's mix of property values is different. That's it. That's all I got. So that was just a little taste of the local option. I know this is something that the district has been talking about, wanting to explore. There's a lot more that we could say on that topic and a lot more information I could provide, but I think tonight we just wanted to touch a little bit on the surface and answer any questions.
Thank you. That was a lot.
I'm sorry.
A lot. I don't know how to ask this question, but is it possible to get some sort of breakdown of which of our HSD communities on the map, per se, are going to be mostly impacted, financially burdened by something like this? Does that make sense?
Property value assessment.
The levy or for that bond?
I'm thinking the levy, but I know you can't probably get too detailed, but I'm just curious. I think that would be useful information, actually, to know, how our HSD families are impacted different numbers based on their fixed income or not fixed income and so on. I don't know if there's a way to pull some of that information. And in turn, if there's certain pockets that are more financially burdened, then I could assume that our small businesses will also be impacted or not. I don't know. So I'm just curious if that's available information.
I don't know. That might be something we can work with the county assessor on. One thing that we do look at and can provide is basically the max that amount of a local option that a property would pay based on the ratio between their assessed value and their real market value. So let's say we could look at, on average, residential properties, their ratio of AV to real market value, maybe like 50%. And so unfortunately, because they have such a big gap, it means they're likely to pay the full freight of the local option. It's different property classes where the assessed value is closer to the real market value that would not pay the full local option. And that is something that probably not to the level of detail that you're asking for, that it's already included in kind of what we put together, but we could potentially see if we could take it a step further. But there will be something to that effect that I think may help in that evaluation.
I think the thing that might not be immediately apparent is that you can have next door neighbors that pay vastly different amounts. So
try right.
I do think it's just even visually to be able to see on a map this area of our community is going to be probably a little more, to know that when it's time to campaign, they're going to need a little more love, right? And I'm learning a lot about this, but I'm assuming if you're a manufactured homeowner, stuff could be very different than if you're not. So I don't know. I think that would be useful information just to know how our families are going to be impacted or not.
I would add that if we don't know what number of communities own their home, I don't even know how that level of detail is to
Well, this is just the local.
Well, my business never owned it. I know the slide says it's complicated, but I still don't have an idea of what we would be able to raise if we decided to go up for a levy at some point.
When we did some earlier analysis, so take this very, very loosely, because things have changed even since then. But I think when we were looking at that $1.25-ish range, it was something in the 15 million, sort of what we thought the output would be per year to the operation.
1.5?
Yeah, 1.5.
And that's at the 1.25?
I take that very loosely.
Right.
And that was before,
this
year's property value.
Earlier analysis, but just to give you a number, it was in that range.
So what kind of difference does 15 million make in HSD? Like how many people is that? Because levies are people and bonds are things.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, I mean, it gets complicated depending on the type of employee we're talking about, but let's say an average salary for licensed staffers with benefits is 130,000-ish, so you can kind of do the math, right? How many people that is.
Are we with like 2.4 million number to lower class size by one district-wide?
Yeah, it's higher. Probably getting close to 3 million, I would guess.
In the lower?
So if you say
it's lower by 3. If we spend on
only, I was about to say, that's only if you're spending just that amount, only on teachers.
I'd rather pencil this out than try to do it all myself.
that's hard.
I don't want to give you guys bad numbers.
But it gets to the point of what I'm trying to get at. Like, if the ask of the community doesn't make a substantial difference, I'd rather not ask them.
And it's about 20 staff members per lowering class size by 1. So you're talking 60. Right? So times it by 5.
But I mean, we did just as an example, 16 million in cuts, obviously for this year, and 20 million, but 16-ish of it was in staffing. So I mean, the levy would have.
Oh, was that about 50 people? 60?
A little more than that. It was 7.
Oh, with classified and licensed.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, just to give you a data point.
Yeah. I mean, I know, I recognize. Thank you. Entertaining all. I know we have to finish this discussion, but I would like this brought back to us, and then to our superintendent. The question is, how much are we asking for? If we sell bonds, how much are we asking for? If we go to levy, how much are we asking for? So ultimately, I think I want to have this conversation again from a different trajectory to understand once our superintendent and our director of facilities come together and say, yeah, I think I'm going to need X amount. That, I think, might guide us in a different way as well.
Slide 12, so somewhere between 311 and 380 million is what it looks like, right?
Well, that's what we presented to the Bond Development Committee. And pretty quickly, because what we also shared in the Bond Development Committee that we didn't share here is that our total universe of asks is about $640 million. That's what we need. And that's not what we're going to get. Just in our level 4, our highest priority items are already at 380. And that doesn't allow us to get to any projects that are lower than the absolute highest priority. So there was some interest voiced in potentially, like for example, if we did a 5-year average of the rates instead of a 3-year average, we could bump up another 10 cents, get to $1.90, and that could get us to $411 million. So there's some interest in potentially going there.
But does that do things like keep us from having to ask for permission or ask for an exception because we can't afford to buy a new math computer?
Well, I mean, it's totally different. I mean, I totally hear what you're saying, but I mean, we have to think about our GO bond. Our GO bond can only be used for certain things, and so we think about our capital needs. Those capital needs are about $640 million right now. We would love to be able to do more than half of them if we could.
They were like 750 last time when we did 450, right?
I think we have yet to.
How far are we from getting like a preliminary list of what are those 650 million needs? I guess the bond committee's probably seen them. So who's on the bond committee?
The bond committee hasn't seen a a detailed list of all of them. They've been presented from functional area experts, kind of what the categories of projects entail. For example, roofing and seismic and doors and locks and playgrounds and ADA and Title IX compliance and extracurriculars and CCP, build outs and things like that. So,
Seismic?
What's that?
More seismic? I thought we handled that last time.
Well, things get older and years that go by, and
But that's what I mean.
when you do roofing projects, if you haven't addressed current code, then you have to do that. So anyway, our last meeting will entail going through some package options for the BDC to consider, and then we'll whittle it down to 2 or 3 that we'll then share with you all at the December board meeting, and then plan to take to the community for their feedback and keep refining from there.
And yeah, the options I presented again were just a couple of the starting points. And so if you're going through and you need more, there's other things we can look at. We can also look at doing 2 different sales as we did with the last authorization. That will have an impact on it as well. So it's not these are your only 2 options, just kind of a realm of possibility at this point that you can work from.
But I would also just remind folks, and we will be polling again to see where people are at right now. It is going to be 9 years later that we're asking people these questions, but the last time we did polling for our 2017 bond, and we polled based on just having the GO bond, and then we asked, would you support if we went out for a combo, GO bond and local option, and that tanked the support of our bond, which is why we didn't go out for a local option at the time. So just for historical reference.
I think you're talking about splitting them.
Yeah, I make no secret of the fact that I'm not a pro local option bond person or a local option levy person, but if we do it, my recommendation would be that we divorce the 2, go for the GO bond, and then think about whether or not we want to try for the local option and do it separately, because we need the GO bond.
Some of that has to do with the next set of biennia that will come from the state's allocation and in the direction of the current service level or any of that. So we mapped it out, and there are a couple of spots that were levied.
Yeah.
That was kind of.
Yeah.
Just briefly on the subject, our new board members may not know this, but I'm usually the one, since I joined the board, twice a year raises the issue of local option levies. I appreciate Scott including this. I've served for a number of years before I joined the board on the Washington County Board of Property Tax Appeals, so I enjoy getting into the details about compression but evaluation. But from a big picture prudential level, I didn't come into board service feeling strongly that we should have a local option levy, but the more I talk to people in peer districts and community members, I've become more in favor of it, because all of our, what I would consider near peer districts, large multi-high school suburban districts, Beaverton, Tiger, Tualatin, Wilsonville, Sherwood, they all have local option levies. And so they're all getting the state school fund per pupil plus a little extra, and we're not. And so every year the board makes a decision not to have a local option levy, not to send one to the voters. We're accepting that we're going to have a lower per pupil overall operating budget than all of what I would consider near peer districts. And so that's why I consider it raising. And so I appreciate the additional data today, and I hope we can continue that conversation in the future.
And I've mentioned this before, but many districts, that first hurdle, getting that first local option approved, oftentimes takes more than one election. And
to review, then get the first one.
Yeah, and it's just, I think, but to that point, exploring it more before you really, really need it. I'm working with Ben Lapine School District, and they're like, they tried already and have got shot down once. And they're like, we've got to do it again. We're looking at, pretty dire financial situation. So starting the conversation, pulling people in, maybe trying before you really absolutely need it is something to think about as well.
And to Patrick's point, there was only 20 on that list that have them of 197, and a lot of them are nearby.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. And due to time, we're going to go ahead and skip the last item on our agenda and recess this meeting at 6:59. We're end this meeting at 6:59. And like we always do, the flag salute, and the flag is right behind you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, I will be reading the land acknowledgements. As we gather here today, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge that our district service area is in the occupied traditional homelands of the Alphalete Indigenous people lands we now call Washington County and the state of Oregon. We honor the indigenous peoples whose traditional and ancestral homelands we stand on the Tualatin, Kalapuya, Willamette, Clackamas, Tumwater, Molalla, bands of the Chinook, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River. In remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their ancestors. We recognize the urban indigenous Native First Peoples community living in the metro area, which includes over 400 tribal nations. The Hillsboro School District is committed to the recognition and education regarding tribal and local history and working with our local tribes in partnership. Our next agenda item is the approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors approve the agenda as printed.
A second. It has been moved by Director Thomas and seconded by Director Mercado Harden to approve the agenda as printed. Is there any discussion? Motion carries. Our next agenda item is to approve the consent agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Watson and seconded by Director Thomas to approve the consent agenda as printed. Is there any discussion? Motion carries. Do we have any audience hands up? Perfect. Our next agenda item is the first reading, new course approval with Brooke and Becky.
Good evening. What an exciting time to start the course proposals. Tonight we do have AP African American Studies. Our CCAC heard this course on Monday, November 3rd, so we're really excited to bring this to you. I will turn it to the Director of Secondary Teaching and Learning, Becky Kingsmith, to start the presentation.
Good evening, everybody. Great to see you all again. I think this is my first board meeting, well, of the general session this year. So, I wanted to, as most of you are familiar, around this time of year, we do our new course proposals for our high schools as we start to gear up for our student course selection process that happens in the winter. And tonight we have our first course. I may be back next month with another course. And just as a reminder, as we do these, our course proposals generally come from a single educator at one of our high schools. When we approve our courses, we are approving them for the entire school district to be able to offer. So while it might only start with being offered at one school, many of these classes that we have proposed over the years have expanded to be offered at multiple high schools, if not all of our high schools. And so this point, I'm going to hand it over to our educator who's going to present to us. So we have Anasali Barragan Gonzalez, who's going to share just a little bit about her because it's always fun to brag about our educators. This is an alumni of ours. She was actually a student CCAC member, so she was very familiar with the process as she was presenting the new course. And she was also one of our dual language pathway scholars who now is a dual language teacher, a social studies teacher at Century High School, and she is proposing AP African American Studies.
Whatever you want. Sorry.
No, thank you so much for having me here. It really doesn't feel too strange, and I'm very happy about that as an HSD student. As always, I say I'm that proud to be HSD logo. I love it. I am very happy to be here in front of you all to be presenting AP African American Studies. When I heard about the opportunity, I was very excited to jump on. And as mentioned, I hope this is just the beginning. And that we can continue this as time comes throughout our HSD schools. Yeah. Awesome.
That's the end of our
That's our last slide, which is pretty. You have that beginning.
Yeah, there's two in the board packet area.
Let's start. That's how we roll in schools. Well, I can introduce it a little bit while we get it up. So AP African American Studies is a newer course within the College Board. And this is an interdisciplinary studies class. This course examines the diversity of African American experiences from early African kingdoms and to contemporary challenges and achievements. And by African American, I mean African and American. By America, it does not solely represent the United States. It represents North and South America, all of the Americas. It uses authentic and varied sources for direct student encounters with an emphasis on historical literacy, visual, and data analysis. This course foregrounds a study of the diversity of Black communities in the United States and the broader context of Africa and the African diaspora. This course has extensively been researched both by college and high school teachers and professors to really make sure that we are getting an authentic experience as students navigate this. And so, I don't know if should I continue? Okay. Okay, awesome. And so this course, it has three components. We have skills, units, and topics. This is explained a little bit further in our AP course manual. And in the course manual, all of the lessons have a skill attached to it within the units. And if you were to scroll to the fourth slide, you will see the three skill categories. This, as a teacher who is currently piloting the course outcomes, I think this fits beautifully into our course outcomes. We have skill category 1, applying disciplinary knowledge, source analysis, and argumentation. And so every lesson will contain at least one of these skills, but usually 2 or 3 of these skills as we are examining this. Each topic or lesson will vary between 1 to 2 class periods, but mainly 1 full 90-minute class period. And the lessons are organized into thematic units that we can scroll to next. These units are four, beginning with the origins of the African diaspora, going on to freedom, enslavement, and resistance, then the practice of freedom, movements, and debates. And in the next slide, you can see a few of the lessons within the 2 units, starting with the origins of the African diaspora. As I mentioned, we start in Africa, where it all starts. We examine what the course is, and this goes beyond the slave trade, because we know the story of Africa does not start there. The story of Africa is a rich and expanding story that deserves to have the recognition. And from the origins of the African diaspora, we move on to freedom, enslavement, and resistance, focusing on the perseverance and the resilience of African societies as they are in Africa and in the Americas. We also have Unit 3, which heavily focuses on the practice of freedom and how the practice of freedom starts to look like both in the United States and in the rest of the Americas. Moving on to movements and debates with Unit 4, in which we start to see these societies play out in our modern era, approaching onto modern day. And so these are the 4 units that are covered in AP African American Studies. Besides these lessons that are taught, we also have the exam. And the exam has 3 components to it. It has the multiple choice component, the free response component, and the project component. The multiple choice will take a variation or a variety of questions from all 4 units, but the free response questions will have 3 questions and 1 document-based question utilizing those skills that they have previously learned. Besides this multiple choice and free response, they also have a project. And this project is something that is started at the beginning of a school year or early on in the school year for them to dive deeper, to have an opportunity to learn what's beyond the course, because African American Studies cannot be summarized in a single year. It cannot be summarized in a single semester. And so this project gives students the opportunity to explore deeper into something that they might be curious about, into a presentation, a movie, an essay. The sky's the limit with this. And so with this project, we would work on it early midway, and we would have the opportunity to review it, present it to our classmates, hopefully in front of the community, and turn it in after the exam as well. So the purpose of this AP African American Studies is really enabling students to learn about the experiences and the contributions of African Americans throughout history, something that has lacked from time to time in our history books. It's designed for students from all ethnic backgrounds who can benefit from developments in every social, academic, artistic, and technological field. This is a course for everyone, not just for students who identify as African American. And we have a lot to learn from this course. This course fosters cultural understanding and appreciation for African American contributions to the world. And it provides us with crucial for building and accepting more cohesive and inclusive community for tomorrow, which I know we would all love.
I just want to take a moment to introduce our new co-chair. This is Bhaskar Roy Bardon, and he's also a new Hillsboro resident of this year. So we're really excited to have Bhaskar with us. We also have a new chair, Hannah Holt. So we do have an additional course that will be brought forth to us in December. So if that one moves forth, you will meet our new chair at the December meeting as well. So I'm going to introduce Bhaskar. He's going to go over a little bit of the feedback and the recommendation for this course.
Thank you, Brooke. Good evening, everyone. So it is my honor to be in this meeting as a vice chairperson for CCAC. Now, I think I need to hire one. There you go. Okay. anyway, the room is small, so I guess all you can hear. Okay, so as Brooke and Anna mentioned that this course was presented to us, CCAC, a few weeks ago, and there was some feedback and recommendations that I'd like to present here now. So some of the questions that came up from the CCAC committee, one question was, we all know that Africa is a very big continent, right? So it has so many diverse cultures and everything. So how will this course be inclusive of all the diverse cultures within Africa? So the answer was the course will actually begin with Africa, where all the students will learn and complete an African Kingdoms project. They will also explore 12 different kingdoms and dive into their languages, religions, and other aspects such as trade routes and more. And the second question I'd like to highlight here is actually came, and the question is, what does this course mean to the educator as a teacher? And I think she already kind of highlighted her background, long-standing, so I don't have to. But I just want to mention quickly that she graduated from Glencoe and was part of this committee as a student member and a student representative on the Oregon State Board, and also visited White House to meet the U.S. Secretary of Education. So throughout all these experiences, she has shown her consistent devotion and advocacy for the students of color to be included in the curriculum and the classrooms. So this course, I think, is personally important and resonates with her very well. So do you want to expand, Anna, on this particular topic?
Yes, like I said, I don't think I can get tired of it enough. When I joined the CCAC, we were part of a student organization hoping to add ethnic studies as a course. And I am very happy to now have ethnic studies, to have taught ethnic studies in HSD. So these ethnic studies classes have always been a passion of mine. It's always been a true passion for me to ensure that as many students can receive the education, this education as possible. Because I don't think that this sort of education, although this isn't for now an elective, this is something that should be required amongst everyone. This is information that every student needs to be a contributing global member. And so, as I mentioned, I am proud to be HSD, and I am proud to make HSD stronger and more beautiful than it already is.
All right, the final feedback I'd like to mention here is that how does the AP course present Africa? So the AP course framework, CED, and the AP Institute actually cover Africa beyond West Africa. And it includes topics such as the daily life, trades, and socio-economical matriarchal systems, and so on. So teachers must follow here the CED and AP exam requirements. And also this course has been reviewed by high school and college educators over several years, and also has been a part of official AP course for 3 years. So these are some of the feedback we received, and overall the recommendation was it was highly recommended to move forward for school board considerations. There was no abstention or no votes here. So that was the feedback from CCAC that we should highly, we recommended that this course to move forward for the consideration. Thank you.
So at this time, we'll take any of your questions or feedback. I also just wanted to acknowledge, thank you so much, Principal Casper, for not only coming to the CCAC meeting in the beginning of this month, but for being here today as well. So thank you so much for your support in this as well. So if you have any questions, we're here to answer those. Thank you so much for your time.
Question and comment. First of all, comment. Can I just say thank you? For obvious and not so obvious reasons. You are incredible. Your energy, your spirit, everything about me tells me that you could teach this course. to someone that looks like me, someone that looks like you, someone that looks like Mark. That's what this is about. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for giving us a chance to give you a chance.
Thank you.
So I won't cry.
I guess I kind of have a question. And I'm looking at the lesson plan. Some of these can get really heavy, and so I'm just wondering the support that teachers that in the future would be teaching these courses, what kind of like support they would get, resources to be able to teach these lessons, and support students that may need additional support even outside of the course.
I can speak for the CED, and I might let you speak a little bit further, but the CED or the course manual, I think lays everything out perfectly how we need to have it. And so it gives a little bit of leeway for teachers to modify it, to adapt it to our climate, but it makes it strict enough that we are not going off into our own little adventure and teaching something that may not be true. And so by that, within the CED, it gives us very specific points to hit. And I think for me as an educator, having those specific points to hit and to touch on, I think that gives me the clarity that I am able to provide the answers for students and families and other staff members. Yeah. Sorry, and I completely bypassed this. Besides this, I participated in the AP Summer Institute this summer just to get a feel for it before I fully committed, which I was fully committed beforehand, but I went into it and I dove into it. It was an extensive week-long training with one of the creators of this course who gave us time to work on this, time to collaborate with other educators who some were new to it, some were had been teaching it since it started. With that, we have an active Google Classroom in which he is providing even more resources, even more time for collaboration between educators, connecting us with more local resources like educators in the Portland public school system and in Forest Grove as well. And so through that AP Summer Institute, also we were able to get a good amount of resources as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I do have another question, I promise. This might be for Brooke. How many AP courses are we currently offering?
So this is going to be a real rough estimate, but I would say somewhere between 20 to 25.
Okay.
But we can follow up with you in one of your weekly reports if you want to know specific.
So the reason why I asked was I wanted to know, I thought you were going to tell me like 50. And
I don't even know if there are 50 AP classes, to be honest with you.
Okay. I just wanted to know how this falls in. I know that we traditionally think of AP courses as some of our more stringent academia courses, our English, our chemistry, those types of courses.
Yeah.
And with this in mind, I just wanted to know where it would be. Like, would this be number 35 or 36? And this would then be offered at all of the high schools, although we know that they may or may not be taught at all the high schools. Is that correct?
Right. So for next year, Century is prepared to put this on their course selection sheet. I don't even know if all of our high schools, like our principals all know this is out there, but this is kind of the process that starts to other teachers are like, oh, that's a fun class. I might like to teach that, right? From personal experience, Back in the day, I personally proposed AP Human Geography as a new social studies class. I was the first educator to teach that at Glencoe High School. It's now offered at all 4 of our high schools. It's one of our most popular AP classes that we offer in HSD, or I should say 3 high schools because Hill High does IB. So, yeah.
I just had one question. Well, first wanted to say thank you to the CCAC, Brooke and Becky, for bringing this forward to us. And thank you very much to Anaceli for not only identifying this course as one that would be
a potential addition to our school curriculum, but also staying on the cutting edge of the College Board and seeing that there was something that's only been offered for 3 years and that it would be something that our students would like too. So thank you so much for that initiative. And just very short clarifying question, this would be a year-long course?
Yes, this would be a year-long.
Okay.
I also have a question. And again, thank you. Want to echo everything that my colleagues have said. Thank you for coming back to HST as well. It's good to have you. Does this class follow like a regular African American studies class? Is this open to, freshmen all the way through seniors? Are there, I know in the past we've had more of the sequential courses, and I understand this isn't necessarily like a sequential course. Does it have any prerequisites that our students would have to take in order to be able to enroll in this class?
Thank you. Let me try to answer that to the best of my abilities. This would not have any prerequisites. This would be an elective course, almost like a AP Euro or AP World, AP Psych. One of the elective courses, students to earn a chancellor's diploma, from my understanding, they need 4 social studies credits, and this would give them the option to earn that 4th social studies credit. There are no other prerequisites. We don't have any regular African American studies course.
Great. Perfect. That answered, I think, all my questions. And it's open to all levels, grade levels?
I recommended that it is open to 10 through 12, just because of the seriousness of the topic.
Perfect. Thank you.
Another question. If we roll this out, would it then be available to our IB students at Hill High so that they can go and take it for that 4th credit? Because we started at Century. They don't.
I believe it wouldn't be at Hill High just because it is an IB school, and this is more of an AP course.
We wouldn't offer it at Hill High, but there would be the potential for students at Hill High to join at Century. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors that play into that, but hypothetically, yes, students from Hill High would be able to access the course. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Well, thank you so much. Yes.
I would just like to thank Ana Sali Barragan for being an awesome person. We were proud of you when you were a student, and for you to come up through our school system and then become a teacher and now advocate for classes that are engaging for students and take them on a deeper journey into our history and then who we are today is just really inspiring to me. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you so much. And I also want to say thank you to my principal, Julie, for providing this opportunity and for encouraging me. I really appreciate you so much. Thank you.
We love her too.
Well, thank you. Our next agenda item is the financial report with Scott.
Can you hear me? Thank you, Chair, and good evening again, Board. The only thing I actually wanted to mention, we've had a lot of discussion about the assessed value change, the significant assessed value change. We will start to see that in the cash flow report. Actually, those receipts typically come in at the end of this month, and then they flow, the bulk of them often into December. So if you're looking for that, you won't see it in this because this goes through October actuals. But I did want the Board to know that my team and I, we've forecasted all of that and built our model around that. And you'll start to see that show up with the actuals in next month's report in addition to this one. With that said, I know there's been a lot of finance tonight, so I'm happy to take any questions the Board has on the financial report.
Any questions for Scott? Yes, Director Watson.
Yeah, sorry, this surprise. I meant to email this afternoon. I forgot. Listening to the House Education Committee yesterday, there was a long discussion about the new accountability measures and how the financial reporting. At some point, I would, if you would like to send an update, maybe include a Board update, how cumbersome these changes are going to be to HSD. One of the things one of the representatives hit on was that, it's unfunded mandate might be too strong a word, but that the schools are expected to change and they're not giving any funding to change. So I'm just curious, as we I do think the deadline got pushed back. Is that right?
Yeah, it got pushed back by 1 year. It's been a topic of significant concern to CFOs and business office leaders around the state. We have looked at it pretty extensively. I guess probably how I'd summarize it is we support the intent of the change. We were very glad to see it pushed back by a year because it is a very significant amount of work we will have to do. There's restating of financials and so forth. Again, not disputing the objective. I think most school business officials are on board with that, but the pace of the change, I was glad they reconsidered based on the feedback, and it will take a significant amount of effort on the business office to actually implement the PBAM over the course of the next 18 months or so.
All the code changes and whatnot don't already coincide with the codes we use.
Is not trivial. We will have to reclass a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
If I can also add that the Oregon School Board Association is fighting vehemently to try to educate legislators. In fact, the impetus of the Oregon School Board Association, the CFOs, the superintendents, everybody came together and they deluged the legislature to say, good idea, guys, but you didn't get this one right. And if you do it now, you will absolutely decimate us in a place where you have not funded us effectively. There are additional conversations going on from OSBA and their collective efforts to influence this. And so it is also on that level. It is on the minds of those folks as well. Our rural districts are going to suffer significantly because of their lack of resources. I presume that there would be an impact on us as well.
Yes, very significant. Again, I think with the right timeline, certainly we're on board to do it, but it is a non-trivial amount of work to meet the original objectives that they've laid out.
But I appreciate you admitting that, yes, this is going to be significant and it's not going to make us all happy. I know you're not going to be happy, but thank you.
Any other questions for Scott? No? Thank you, Scott. Our next agenda item is addressing current events with Fran and Beth. And I wanted to say before we kick that off really quick, if any of my fellow board members have any suggestions or questions of things we can do to improve or just your opinions, please email Fran and Beth and Travis and Rose, please. Thank you. Take it off.
I'm going to go ahead and start us off, but thank you very much for having us have an opportunity to speak tonight. In times of uncertainty and stress, our HSD commitment to fostering safe and welcoming schools for all remains unwavering. The recent incidences in ICE presence in our community has created fear and confusion for many families. In January, we started our conversation regarding this matter and have continued our capacity to build information, to provide information for our building and staff, as well as families. In response to recent events, we have mobilized quickly, partnering with local organizations, equipping our staff with resources, and engaging directly with families to ensure that every student feels supported and cared for. Some examples include mental health support through Washington County, coordination with our law enforcement agents, and our continued efforts to bring community together through culturally specific events, such as the Native American Alaska Native celebration that we all experienced this month. Tonight, I want to share how we are addressing two critical needs that have emerged from our communication with our schools and at parent meetings, which are access to food and understanding available resources. One of the most pressing needs that has surfaced during this time is access to food and food insecurities. With added complications such as the government shutdown, which paused federal funding such as SNAP, layered an extra layer of worry for our families and students. We know our students cannot fully engage and learn in school if their basic needs are not met. Our family outreach liaisons, which serve in all 37 of our schools in our district, as well as our district liaisons housed at the administration center, have communicated this concern during our regular meetings. In response, we have strengthened partnerships with community-based organizations such as Adelante Mujeres and Centro Cultural and work closely with local officials and committees to connect families to food resources. These collaborations allow us to respond quickly and effectively to provide food and clothing in times of insecurity, ensuring that families have the support they need during these challenging times. Many of our schools have food pantries or are starting food pantries, and we have been able to activate, stock, and restock them for our students and families.
All right. So I was just going to add a little color commentary to this and remind you all that on October 31st, on Halloween Day, we sent out an all-district message to all staff and family members in our community and talked about the need for food support for our families in light of the pending end of SNAP benefits that were coming the very next day. And since kind of sounding the alarm, I guess, with our own community and also our HSF partners graciously agreeing to help us spread the word. Just in the last 19 days, just what's come in through HSF and the district level, not to say what's gone directly to schools, but has been $10,000 in cash donations. Over 6,500 of that went directly to schools. We had another over 2,800 that came in undesignated to the district that we have discretion over how to distribute to schools. Home Depot has graciously agreed to help us get 4 refrigerators to support school-based food pantries. There was another anonymous donation that came in through HSF to support the purchase of another refrigerator. And just today, $500 worth of family-friendly gift cards showed up on my desk. Excuse me, from the relative of an HSC staff member who lives in Bend. So support is flowing in from all over the place. It's really inspiring. And, we're doing our best to, as soon as things come in, get them out to the schools and the families that need them, and trying to maintain that list of need and how people can get involved and support us on our website.
This coming Monday, we are participating with a local supermarket to provide 250 Thanksgiving dinners for our families who are being supported by the funding came through from Hillsboro Police Department and Beaverton Police Department. So that will be coming up too. The second topic that comes up is understanding immigration resources. So equally important to the needs of our families and staff is to understand immigration resources available to them. To address this, we created presentations for administrators, enabling them to inform staff and families on support and safety measures. The family engagement team meets often, and through that, we have been able to provide them with up-to-the-date information. When concerns about ICE activity first arose, we held a meeting for family outreach liaisons, including their principals and administrators, many of which came. And during that meeting, we shared updated resources for focus on student safety and family care. Our community organizations continue to share resources with us, such as Know Your Rights and Legal Counsel, that we additionally share and can be found on our district website, which Beth will talk about in just a second. We continue to engage families directly. And for example, just last week, Travis hosted a Spanish coffee chat, which his Spanish is getting really well, really good, where he was able to answer questions and concerns in partnership with our Spanish-speaking families. Each of our parent advisory committees have access to the same resources as do others on our district website. And each of our parent advisory and family engagement group has shown and expressed definite concern and a willingness to want to support those who are affected through immigration status. We continue to offer support at monthly meetings for our family outreach liaisons, and these efforts, combined with our alignment with local officials and countywide committees, such as the Latino Policy Council and community-based organizations, We ensure that families feel informed, supported, and empowered. A group of us recently attended the Latino Policy Council as well as did a presentation for Adelante. Brooke was included, Travis, of course, was there, and Arsema Tovar, who is our Director of Multilingual Programs. We were all able to present to them not only about the programs that we use to enrich our students' language efforts, but also what we're doing to support. And now Beth's going to speak about the district communication efforts and resources.
Yes, so as I'm sure you're all well aware, we have consolidated our resources on this topic on our Safe and Welcoming Schools webpage, and we really try to drive folks to that space to learn more about getting their questions answered, some commonly asked questions, and to find resources like a family preparedness toolkit or how to access the ILRC red cards, just know your rights training in general, different organizations they can reach out to for support. I also want to mention that there are some additional resources that we don't have on our public facing website, which are some kind of internal process documents on which all of our administrators, front office staff, and family outreach liaisons have been trained so that they know exactly what to do if there were ever a case where ICE were to come onto campus and attempt to enter the building for any purpose. They have kind of like, if they're wanting to do this, you do this. And so just know that training has been delivered, that those matrices exist, and those resources are available for our staff to help them feel prepared in the case that such a thing would happen. I also wanted to say, and not to steal your thunder, Yvette, but Yvette and I had the opportunity to go to a roundtable discussion with U.S. Representative Suzanne Bonamici and U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley last week, along with some other community-based organizations. And it was a great opportunity to tell our federally elected representatives about the experiences that our families and community members are having here, and some ideas for what they can do to support us.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention Dr. Olga Acuna, who, without her unwavering support as a community activist and as a HSD employee, as the Executive Director of Federal Programs, her connections in the community has really helped us to ensure that we are getting connected to the right people at the right time. And so I just want to end with our strength. Our strength in HSD is our community. And we talk a lot about that. It's our partnerships and our shared commitment to have equity for all. By leaning on one another, schools, families, local agencies, community organizations, we are creating a network of care that ensures no family faces these challenges alone. We will continue to listen, adapt, and act so that every student and family in Hillsboro feels safe, supported, and valued. Together, we will move forward because in HSD, we all belong.
Thank you. Comments? Yes.
I just want to give a big shout out and share my gratitude for our family outreach liaisons and district liaisons. We are so lucky to have them in many spaces where I've been, and people have asked about how is HSC doing, and I can talk them up and talk about all these great things. And the thing that I keep hearing is, I wish we had that. I wish we had that. And it is very unique. And I think a lot of this work would not be possible if we didn't have them. They are the ones that are just directly connected to families. And many times our families go to them because they've built that trust and relationship. I've had people in the community who, in conversation, I'm hearing them say, oh yeah, we already know where to donate to our school. We are already connected. We're giving them names of who need it. And so it's like, I don't even have to promote it. It's already being done, and it's circulating, and it's positive. It feels so proactive. And I think it's also a great model for other districts who should have family outreach liaisons as well. So I just wanted to say that, and hopefully, Fran, if you can pass that on to them, that their work on all this is just so appreciative. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Thank you, Fran and Beth. Our next agenda item is it's an action item this evening, is to appoint the budget committee members. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors appoint the slate of candidates identified during the work session to the vacant positions on the Budget Committee as follows. Appoint Paul Sander to position 2, which expires on June 30th, 2026. Appoint Robert Noak to position 5, which expires on June 30th, 2028. Appoint Maria Mondragon Almi to position 6, which expires on June 30th, 2028. And appoint Tanuka Karunaratne to position 7, which expires on June 30th, 2028.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Kim and seconded by Director Thomas that the Board of Directors appoint the slate of candidates identified during the work session to the vacant positions of the Budget Committee as follows. Appoint Paul Sanders to position 2, which expires on June 30th, 2026. Appoint Robert Noak to position 5, which expires on June 30th, 2028. Appoint Maria Mondragon Almi to position 6, which expires on June 30th, 2028, and appoint Danuka Conragrante to position 7, which expires on June 30th, 2028. Is there any further discussion?
Just Rose or Scott, whomever notifies them. Let's make sure Paul getting nominated to position 2 knows that even though his term expires soon, please reapply and come on back.
Roll, can you call the roll, please?
Patrick McGuire.
Aye.
Katie Ryan.
Aye.
Jessica Harden Mercado.
Aye.
Nancy Thomas.
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye.
Sheehan Kim.
Aye.
Yvette Pantoja.
Aye. Motion carries. Our next agenda item is the real property purchase and sale agreement final approval. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors approve the purchase and sale agreement as negotiated.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Ryan and seconded by Director Watson that the Board of Directors approve the purchase and sale agreement as negotiated. Is there any further discussion? No. Rose, can you call the roll, please?
Patrick McGuire.
Aye.
Katie Ryan.
Aye.
Jessica Harden Mercado.
Aye.
Nancy Thomas.
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye.
Sheehan Kim.
Aye.
Yvette Pantoja.
Aye. Motion carries. Our next agenda item is the first reading of policies. Travis, is there anything you'd like to add?
No.
Good. And this now brings us to HTU HEA reports. And, you guys can decide who goes first.
Good evening, Chair Pantoja, Vice Chair Kim, fellow board members, Superintendent Ryman, and executive leaders. Happy American Education Week. My name is Mary Kay Babcock. My pronouns are she, her, and. I'm a proud music educator of 26 years, and I'm honored to serve as the Hillsboro Education Association president, going on 4 years. This year, I've talked about the importance of achieving a work-life balance. Last month, I shared that HEA has continued to be proactive in working collaboratively with HSD leadership to identify challenges and to create solutions that strengthen our school community to support our educators, students, and their families. Over the past several weeks, educators across the district have continued to report increasing student behaviors, limited support staff, and growing workload pressures that make it difficult to meet student needs. These concerns are not isolated. They are system-wide and have directly informed our most recent work. To better understand the pressures facing our special education educators, HEA launched a SPED survey. In the first 48 hours, clear trends began to emerge. Widespread loss of prep time, case management time, with a member stating, "I'm using my own time every night just to stay compliant." Inconsistent delivery of SDI and IEP accommodations, with members stating, "We can't meet IEP minutes when we're covering behaviors all day." Staffing shortages and limited coverage, with a member stating, "There's no behavior support staff, so we get pulled from teaching." Synergy SE transition challenges, with a member stating, "It's like writing a brand new IEP every single time." Rising stress, burnout, and safety concerns, with a member stating, "Everyone's working 100% and still falling behind." They do all have a shared desire, and that is for collaboration and solutions, with a member stating, "We all want to make this work. We just need clear systems and consistent support." HEA met with student services last week and again this morning and shared these concerns directly to begin problem solving together. From those conversations, we've created the following solutions. Solution 1, HEA is going to work to follow up with those SPED educators that requested our support. Solution 2, we have agreed that a reminder will go out to all building admin that prep, lunch, and case management time is protected time. Solution 3, HEA has a plan in place to get reports of this if it continues to happen and make student services aware. And if it continues to repeat, we may have to consider escalating to the point of grievance levels. Last month, I shared the introduction of safety watches. This movement was grounded in care. The goal is simple but powerful: to ensure our students and families feel safe coming to school by creating a welcoming, visible presence around our campuses and in the surrounding neighborhoods. And it's working. Since our educators and community members began showing up in solidarity, we've seen ICE activity decline. HEA prioritizes safety and the safety of others. And I appreciate our members who attended the Know Your Rights trainings that were offered by HEA in partnership with the Latino Network. It was a great reminder that everyone in this country has rights regardless of their immigration status. And if we don't use our rights, we lose them. And I want to extend my deepest gratitude to our educators at Eastwood, Pointer Middle School, Oak Street Campus, Newberry, Lincoln Street, Mentor Bridge, Quatama, and Hill High. The heart of this work has proven that we will not back down from protecting our union members and our students. And I'm grateful to the community members, including our very own school board member, Katie Ryan, who has stood several watch mornings to support our students early and in the cold, crisp mornings. So your presence is making a difference. Thank you. Additionally, I want to uplift the beautiful Native American Heritage Month celebration that was provided at Aranco Elementary. Our educators continue to create culturally responsive, inclusive spaces that celebrate our identity of our students and honor our students' stories. Finally, in the spirit of gratitude, I want to acknowledge the compassion of the HEA members who have supported mutual aid efforts for families impacted by the loss of SNAP benefits. I'm deeply moved by the outpouring and compassion that reflects the very best of who we are. And that care defines who we are as an HSD and HEA community. Happy Family Connections next week, and I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Let's see.
Board members, Superintendent Ryman, staff, and those of you online watching and sharing in this evening's meeting. Thank you all. My name is David Eggleston. I'm president of Hillsboro Classified United, the classified union. Francesca, thank you for you and your staff's work day and I dare say night to support our students and their families. Access to food, understanding available resources. Beth, you're sharing about that outpouring in the last 19 days and that huge difference that we're making to help make education possible beyond curriculum, beyond budgets, beyond facilities, to help make our schools a truly welcoming place where students and their families can belong. As we think about creating that safe space, I want to encourage us all to remember something that I've not heard and don't want to take for granted, and that is that some of our classified families, as well as I dare say some of our licensed families and admin families, all are impacted deeply by what we're facing together as a school district community. And so I would invite us, as we are professional in the delivery of services to students and their families, to also be cognizant of one another. That when we show up to work, that we don't know what it's taken for a staff member to show up to work in terms of making perhaps their own families safe on their way to work. And then when they've completed work, what it takes to make ends meet and to keep it all together and to keep showing up day after day and to perform in the midst of, as Mary Kay pointed out, escalating behaviors. You know, kids are feeling the stress, right? And so as we as staff work together and as classified staff, licensed and admin work together to create this safe space for students and families that are feeling the pressures that our staff are feeling a lot of those pressures too. And so to offer to one another as staff, and if you all would please offer to classified staff who are showing up every day, your support and understanding and knowing any one of us that we might not know what our families are facing, and to offer some grace, some empathy, some compassion and care, and understand that the very supports that Francesca and Beth have mentioned and talked about that were so beautifully mobilizing, that some of the most vulnerable among us may be some of our own staff. And it's just to keep those pieces together as we walk together as a community of belonging. So thank you so much for showing up, all of you, tonight, because I don't take for granted that you all are here tonight in person, online, and because I don't know what you all, even board members and their families, might be facing some of this stuff. So thank you all for what you do and who you are. Let us work together, moving ahead in the weeks and months that lie before us. Thank you.
Thank you. This now brings us to discussion time. And before we get started with our board members, we can discuss the OSBA conference if any of our fellow board members that attended would like to make a comment on regarding that.
You want to go last, Nancy?
I'll go last.
Sure. It's always amazing to see board members from around the state, 197 school districts. We talk about that in Oregon all the time. I am exceptionally proud of the way Hillsboro represents at the conference, and looking at topics and realizing, that we are on the leading edge, that we are a leader in the state that other districts often look to for a template on how to do things better in their district. And I appreciate the work that OSBA does to find the commonalities a bunch among all 197, and not just represent urban districts and rural districts. You think about it, the top 10 population districts, us included, represent about half the students in Oregon, which means like 180 represent all of the rest. So there's way more rural board members than there are urban board members. And I often attend a lot of the rural stuff because I also believe, if you look at a Google map satellite view of West Union or Farmington View or Groner or even our schools in North Plains, we are in the transition space between urban and rural. And I've always loved living in that spot in my life, and I'm glad I get a chance to do it again. And I think, it's always great to see everybody. And then I don't know about talking about individual sessions. We all had various ones that resonated with us. The students, it was great to bring all three of our students and see that there was a roundtable discussion over the course of like 3 periods about student representation on your board, and they kind of worked out amongst themselves. Like one of them was going to be at that table each of the 3 sessions, and they found other districts asking them, hey, how would we go about doing this? And I think they are working on connecting with some students. So it's great that although I think Travis attended the session. So one of our former assistant superintendents is now the superintendent in another district, and they have a very interesting way of getting student voice to the superintendent. I guess one of the takeaways I have from the conference is investigating how we might do something like that here, but also not how it can intersect with the work we do with our current students in the way. So I wouldn't want one or the other. I would like to find a way to continue to do both. Nancy attended that session too. So thanks. Thanks for letting me go.
I'll just echo how great it was to have our 3 students there. They represented so well, had some great comments and suggestions, and just their voice was heard, which was really great. And I look forward to more opportunities for them to come with us to stuff like that, because it just makes it feel very collaborative, and to know that, they are our future. So it was great to have them there.
I'll add to that. I also felt that it was a really great learning experience for me as a new board member, obviously to attend OSBA, but also to have this opportunity to collaborate with my colleagues and to get to know our students a little bit better. I think that having a weekend together was really instrumental in cementing the 3 of their relationships. I don't know if they're watching online, but I'll just say that when we asked them about it afterward, that they said, yeah, they really enjoyed getting to know one another better and getting to know us a little bit better. So I think it was a really worthwhile time.
Oh, I guess I got to go now. I had a couple of things on my list, so thank you for redirecting me to be last. Always a pleasure to be a part of the OSBA annual conference, and they tend to have it here in Portland, so we were in downtown Portland. Despite everything going on, it was an incredible event. Portland Public School was there. Their superintendent was there. Their superintendent said they wanted to come back and they wanted their board to be involved. This is important because what it does is bridge the gap that Mark was talking about between rural and urban schools. And being 4 on the top 4 means that you want all 3 above should be represented. And they haven't been. It was incredible. I got a chance to meet Dr. Armstrong. She's just an incredible person. I got a chance to talk to multiple superintendents, and it is hard to describe the feeling and the excitement that is derived from being in community with your fellow board members, your superintendents, the chief cat herder known as Rose Roman. And I say that in all due respect because people respect her. They assign her mentees. People, if they have new board admins, they come and they talk to Rose. She's the expert. And she represents HSD. And I tell everybody, oh, yes, that's our chief cat herder. And of course, then I raise my hand and tell them I'm the worst cat, right? Because I'm the one she has to herd the hardest. So I'm really, truly thankful to be there with all of you guys. It really makes a big difference to go to these conferences and for us to meet and be with other people in community. It was quite thrilling. I was thrilled to see and hear the state's first mariachi band program. Oh my gosh. If you can get on a website and see that band perform, they were incredible. I didn't know that flutes were in mariachi bands. That's how advanced they are. OMG. I mean, they were like, and we were all like, and then they had a dancing group with them, and the dancing group has been there as long as the mariachi band group, and they were just absolutely phenomenal. And there's something to be said when children perform and they do it from the heart. So I can't explain it to you, but that's the best I can do to share it with you. It was incredible. Like I said, I got a chance to talk to multiple superintendents, and I had the honor to facilitate the Washington County Regional Roundtable discussion, which had about, almost 30 people in the room, and we've already told them that we need a bigger room. Washington County is big, and it's very interesting. I was also able to then preside at multiple other sessions in my job duties, and I appreciate my board members that were there with me, wherein I would have to say, we'd be at a table and I'd say, oh, got to go to work, and there I was often doing my thing. But that's what being a part of the OSBA board is about. That's what community at that level is about. And I cannot tell you how it made me feel very special to know that we, meaning the OSBA, is on the trajectory to help and support all 197 districts. That is important. It's really super important for everybody to understand. And I feel like people who live and were born in our 4th and 5th generation Oregonians, congratulations, I just got here. But it didn't take a PhD for me to figure out that 70% of the people live on 30% of the land. But what happens on the other 70% of the land? Yeah, that's where our rural districts are. And so it was really super crucial for us to understand what's happening, what's impacting them, how it impacts them. And again, it comes to community. What impacts them impacts us. If we don't save them, we can't save ourselves. And so that's the kind of impact that we have at the OSBA level. And yes, it's more work, and yes, it's more meetings and all of those things, but there is no better seat to be than the one that's burning. Because you always get things done. So thank you.
Thank you for the OSBA reports and updates and everything that you did. And thank you for representing HSD, as you always do a magnificent job at it. And now we are going into discussion time, and our student reps are not here and there's none online, okay? Then we'll go ahead and get with the Superintendent Ryman.
Thank you. I just want to share appreciation for HSD staff and families for going above and beyond to create safe schools for our students. Thank you for your report tonight, Francesca and Beth. I want to thank our partners, Adelante Mujeres, Centro Cultural, HSF, Saturdays, the Tamale Festival, if you want to support Latino-owned businesses, and the Schools Foundation at the same time, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock on Saturday at the M&M Market. Also the city of Hillsboro. We've been coming together at Centro for strategizing and communicating across agencies, and I'm really proud of the way that Washington County's pulled together. I enjoyed going to OSBA, and I'm not sure if there's a more engaged and respected board in the state as I walk around with you all, and I'm really proud to represent HSD, so thank you for your leadership. Nancy, thank you for your leadership in the OSBA leadership level and all the things that I saw you do over the weekend. Yvette, thanks for representing us with Senator Merkley and having courageous conversations with our elected officials. Jessica, thanks for speaking up at the Spanish language coffee chat, having my back and engaging so well with the community. Your emotion comes through, so thank you for that. Mark, Yvette, Katie, thank you for sitting at the meetings with Centro and collaborating across different jurisdictions to figure out how we support our kids and families. Really appreciate the leadership in the community. And I want to say, the coffee chat was one of the joys of the last month for me. We had 70 folks show up to a virtual coffee chat and engage, and so many people shared and spoke up. And the messages about family separation, the things that are happening on the ground, the families are truly moving. And those messages were transmitted through Yvette to Senator Merkley to do something at the federal level. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we're going to start with our board, and we'll start with Director Watson.
Yeah, thanks. And thank you, Travis, for the courageous way you've been representing our district through all of this at OSBA, at the Centro events and whatnot. So thank you very much for being the face of the district in the community. We also had a chance to gather with a couple of our state legislators and Brooke and the assistant superintendent in Forest Grove. So it was a great example of how we collaborate with our neighboring district so well. A little event where we visited 2 HSD schools, 2 Forest Grove schools, had conversations with our legislators, had lunch provided by the Viking cafeteria, the Viking culinary program. And it was an amazing opportunity to work across the boundary we have with each other in Cornelius and show the collaborative way that we're able to work with our neighbors. Again, happy American Education Week. Beth mentioned I got a chance to drive around to a bunch of schools and deliver apples. I think some of them might have knew who I was and some of them didn't know who I was. So that's kind of fun too. Like you could tell when you ring the, previous bond provided entry bells that everybody has now, and the door just opens. I'm like, oh, they probably recognize me. I'm like, what, can I help you? All right. Not that you need to know who I am, but it's always fun to be in our buildings. And I guess just from the conversation, the increase in need is definitely real. I think some of you know my wife Jenny, her and I pick up Sunday mornings from supermarkets for the St. Vincent de Paul food pantry, and just asking them recently how things have been, and they went from maybe 55 daily pickups to 90. And oftentimes, we have our routine when we get back to the place: cooler, freezer, cooler, shelves. We have our routine that we go through. And one of my first things I usually do is go to the first cooler, the bread, milk, eggs cooler, rearrange the stuff that's in there to the front, put the stuff I got in the back. And I walked into that cooler and it was essentially empty. I did not have to rearrange anything. And this was Sunday morning. So, so it's just an illustration. Like it just hit me hard in that moment. Like, oh yeah, the numbers are real. So the increased need is real. And so thank you to our community for responding.
Thank you, Director Watson. Director McGuire?
Thank you for all the information tonight from our wonderful staff and fellow board members. I never take for granted what wonderful community leaders you all are. It's a pleasure to serve with all of you. In the midst of challenges, it's always nice to take the holiday season to reflect and have some positive reason to celebrate. So I should say that if any community members or board members are attending events at schools or other community events around the holiday season this month and next month that you'd like others to attend, be sure to let me know. I have a special affinity for this season, and so I'd be happy to attend any concerts and those sorts of things that are happening in our schools. So I'll have to ask our student representatives if they have anything going on, since couldn't be with us today. But I am proud of the community and thankful to be part of it, and look forward to everyone having a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Director McGuire. Director Harding-Mercado?
Thank you, of course, to everyone. I just wanted to elevate a resource as we're getting ready for Thanksgiving. ODE, I get their newsletter, and there was like so many great resources this time that I'm like, digging into each of them. And there's one called Rethinking Thanksgiving, and I think you can Google it and it'll pop up. But I suggest everyone to take a look at it as you're thinking about just how ideas and activities that you might be able to consider this year as you're approaching Thanksgiving and the holiday season, and just ways that we can approach it with respect and understanding of our Indigenous histories. And I just think that's very important. So it's a small resource, but it's full of some amazing ideas, very simple. You do not have to not celebrate. My family does, but every year we try to do just one thing different and to, again, approach it with respect. So just wanted to share that resource, Rethinking Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Director Harding-Mercado. Director Thomas?
Just a quick thank you to welcome and thank you to our new budget committee members. Very excited about that. I think we have a nice group of individuals that can really, really help us. So thank you for all the recruiting that went out, and thank you for that vote. And I'm super jazzed that if we have 3 going to 2028, one can come back and say, hey, I love it, or they can give us feedback and say they don't love it. Either way, I think it's a good thing that on June 30th, 2026, we have one more that can give us some feedback, and hopefully we can invite them back. So super jazzed about that. Wanted to say thank you, Scott, again, for an incredible conversation and report by the consultant with regard to the bond and levy options. I appreciate the fact, I think it was Shion that said that was the most digestible, easily understood. Yes, we're going to get it. We're going to be okay. But yet she entertained all of our questions. And I know Mark and I were like a terror, but it's funny because we think in historically, and we know, and we're, and all the things. I just want to say thank you. It was super important that she be able to handle that, because I feel like we're representative of the community. Yeska and I talked about what her question was really like, and what her question was really getting to is what's the impact on all of our options for people who don't own property. That's what we were really trying to get to. And I think that's something that we can look forward to. But I just really, really appreciate it, because I know that was a lot of work. And thank you for, of course, what you're doing on the other ends of things. You and Saida are knocking it dead, so bless you. And thank you for this leadership opportunity at the OSBA level. I am having fun. I am thriving. And I'm enjoying it because you're actually supporting other people, and I'm getting to know the folks on the other 70% of the land in the state. And it's incredible to be in community with folks on the other side of the Cascade that you don't get to see every day. I can't wait to get to John Day. I can't wait to get to Medford. There's so many other places now. I can't wait. I can't wait to go to Wallowa. I mean, that's the way I'm at now. Now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go to all these different places in the state. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Thomas. Director Ryan?
Thank you. I echo all of the accolades that my colleagues have mentioned about our Western Washington County Legislator tour last week. Yvette, thank you for putting heads together with Forest Grove to plan this, and then to Travis, Beth, Brooke, Rose, Ivana, everyone who worked to coordinate all the many details, and the school site visits. Thank you. It was a really informative day to get to see so many different classes, so many different educators, and different levels of students. And I think that also there was some really lively discussion that happened afterwards. So thank you to Superintendent Ryman and Dr. West for facilitating that. And thank you also, Travis, to all of the representation that you have been doing for HSD for some of our other community partners. The Centro meetings have been really collaborative, and I really appreciate you taking on that leadership role for us. With Thanksgiving coming up and holiday season, as Director McGuire mentioned, I wanted to say that it's high school play season, and I'm going to be going to all of them if anyone wants to come with me. So Patrick will. And also with Thanksgiving happening next week, we also have conferences. So thank you so much to all of our educators for all of the one-on-one time that they're going to be providing with a lot of families. And thank you also to all of our education support professionals, because tomorrow is National Education Support Professionals Day. So all of our paraeducators, our grounds crew, nutrition services, custodial services, all of those people who just keep schools running every day, all day. Thank you to all of you. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Director Ryan. Director Kim? This past week doing school visits, it was just a reminder of how dynamic our students are. I mean, we were sitting in a pre-K class talking about the moon and what color it is, to going to the construction program and seeing how comfortable and confident these students are in handling power tools. That it's just beyond me. But it was so cool being able to talk with some of the students, especially a part of the construction program, of getting to hear their insights about why they joined this program, why they are taking the class, and if they've had previous exposure to this line of work. And some students said, yes, my dad's an electrician, or my dad's a plumber, or others who have never really, doesn't know anyone in that industry yet has chosen to kind of partake in it and to learn a new skill. And so it was just an incredible opportunity just to see a little bit of a snippet of what our students get to do, all the way from the dual language pre-K class all the way through a CTE program. So thank you to all of the staff and the leadership that really make that happen and have the vision to be able to provide that opportunity for our students. In visiting some of the schools, it was also really encouraging to see just the overflowing food pantries or clothing drives that are just apparent. They don't have space for it in closets. It's out in the front because of how much overwhelming support there is from our community. So just wanting to say thank you to our community, who also is showing up for our students and our families, especially during these times. And lastly, I want to say Happy American Education Week. It was really fun to bring my two little girls along to go pack apples at the facility warehouse, and they were shocked with the number of apples there were. And it was also fun to share with them why we're doing what we're doing, and to be able to just share how we're showing appreciation to our educators. And yes, we would love to do more than apples, but this is a small token of appreciation that we can show. And my 5-year-old, she has learned how to count to 100. And so she actually packed, I had to check her work. So I don't know how much of a help they were. I think it was doubling the work because I was checking their baskets. But she packed, I think, 146 apples in one of the baskets, and she was so proud. And then got a donut on the way home. And so, anyways, she got a little camera for her birthday. And so she was taking photos. So I was joking with Justin. I was like, hey, she can be your new comms intern. Yeah. So it was just a lovely experience, and was really glad I was able to bring my girls along to experience. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Kim. I wanted to start off by saying thank you to the cabinet team for all the work that you do and everything you provide for our HSD students and families. And I wanted to say thank you to my fellow board members for all the work that you do for our community. It doesn't go unseen, and I appreciate every single one of you. And as it has been mentioned before, I have found myself in a lot of few different spaces over the last, week or two regarding just the situation we find ourselves in this moment in time, which is completely unfortunate and tragic. And I wanted to express, finding myself in the spaces where we have our leaders, our Latino leaders at the front lines, and the experiences they're going through and the things that they're hearing, and also hearing from our most vulnerable community members, which is our students, and their experiences, and how at times they don't feel like people are listening to them in that part. But what I mean by that is, when we have our wonderful, wonderful educators and people who are currently working on safety walks to make sure our students, get to school, get home safe. That is a wonderful thing, and I support that 100%. But when we have articles, newspapers, videos of these students and highlighting where these students attend schools, you are now broadening that magnifying glass and forgetting the biggest part, which is the safety and well-being of our students. What I've been hearing, and it is something people who are not people of color will not understand, is that once you put those, students' names out there or those schools out there, that target that is going on those students is even bigger. And you get to go home to your family, you get to go to the grocery store, you get to go to the park, you get to do activities, and you'll be fine. You feel fine. Those families and those students do not. That safety, these students are being psychologically maimed at this time, and they're being traumatized, and we are going to have to deal and help those students, down the road once this is over, because it will, and I have hope that it will, but I also want to acknowledge that part. Our students, I've heard from one of our students who recently found themselves, on social media, in the news, tears were coming out of, the students' eyes because they're overwhelmed. They feel the world is on their shoulders. No one is asking how they're doing, how their safety, their well-being, because all they care about is those news article clicks. And it's frightening to hear those things. And I wanted to make sure we all hear those. And I've been hearing it a lot every single day. And it breaks my heart that we are in this position and we're in this moment in time that I hope one day will be over. And I also wanted to say that I found myself having a conversation with Dr. West, who's the superintendent of Forest Grove, and talking about everything that's happening and everything we're trying to do, to help our community. And I told her that, sometimes if I find myself, or any of us find ourselves just going down this rabbit hole and not finding that little piece of hope every single day, then we're just going to completely break and stop the work that we can do. So always just remember to find that hope within yourself and the joy that you have, every single day, even in these dark times. And I just wanted to say thank you for letting me talk and say these things. And as we find ourselves, Thanksgiving is next week for those who celebrate. I hope you have a very wonderful time with your families. And I hope that everyone has a good night and a good rest of the year. So thank you. And now this meeting is adjourned at 8:34.